Almighty Father in heaven, in the name of your Son, our glorious and victorious Savior, Jesus Christ, we humbly ask for your blessing upon our worship of you on this, your holy and sanctified Sabbath day, so that we may grow more in our knowledge of you, our love for you, and our obedience to you. O give thanks unto the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the people. Sing unto him, sing psalms unto him, talk ye of all his wondrous works. Glory ye in his holy name, let the heart of them rejoice that seek the Lord. Seek the Lord, and in his strength seek his face evermore. Amen. And that's what we're trying to do, isn't it, as best we can. We begin with the realization that God is greater than we are, and how many people haven't yet reached that realization, or at least behave as though that is the reality of this world and of the world to come. The fact that we are given the freedom to behave in whatever manner we please is not a doubt of God's existence. It is a proof of his greatness, his trust in those that will choose to be his children. And those who choose not to be, who choose to be the child of another sort of spirit. We'll put the link on for a study did on that recently, how really it's a struggle between whose child we want to be. We didn't have any choice of being born as we are. We didn't choose our parents, but we can choose our father, as in God or the devil, because both have a spirit that may become a part of us and guide us. And a mother, in effect, we know the Church of God is regarded as a mother, as a woman from whom the children of God will be born by means of the conception of the Holy Spirit into each one of us. The church is the people. It's not a building. It's not a corporation. You don't need some government's permission to have a church, because, through history we wouldn't have a church. It wouldn't exist if we were left up to the governments of this world. That's not to say they don't have their churches, but they don't have the Church of God in most cases. I don't know of one. I don't know of a single example in the present day or throughout history in which any nation of man has had the Church of God as its official religion. And that includes Israel, by the way, because with few exceptions, perhaps through the time of Joshua and through the time of Samuel, just sort of brief flashes of righteousness where they were really hanging on solid. But I think more of that comes down to the matter of their leadership at that time, just the strength of the personality. Moses, yes, but look at the rebellions that he had and what he was given to do in the desert. And keeping in mind the whole time that Moses was out there babysitting them, he was babysitting them, waiting for them to die off through that adult generation. They weren't supposed to do that out there. As a matter, they could have been into the land promised to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with little over a year. They traveled down. It doesn't take 40 years to walk out of Egypt and down to Mount Sinai and then up to the land of Israel through the Negev. But unfortunately, they got to the Negev and they wouldn't go any farther. Refused. So the Lord just turned them around and marched them around until that generation of rebels died off. They didn't want to go in, so they didn't. That was the choice. And we have that choice too, that freedom. The Lord didn't drag them when they refused to go in. You didn't send an angel down to each one of them and take them by the hand, drag them in there, kicking and screaming. In the kingdom of God, nobody's going to be dragged into the kingdom of God either. They're going to be dragged into the lake of fire, that's true, but that's too bad. It's a bad choice, and the people are going to be in there. This idea of traditional Christianity, well, if people have never heard the name of Jesus, well, they're all burning in hell right now. And that somehow just claiming the name of Jesus for one's religion, that somehow then you're saved thereafter, but it doesn't work that way. Most of the people are well-meaning. It's not to say they're not, but I got a lot of Catholic relatives that fit into that category. Some of them are very fanatical for their religion, and in a way that's a good thing, but the thing is they've got a deception for their religion, and there aren't many that snapped out of it yet. But I'm sure they will, good in due time, just as everyone else. I really don't think there's going to be a very high percentage of humanity that's going to, after they know better, to just dig in their heels and refuse to repent once they see the alternate. You know, the warning is going to be there, just as solid and sure. And we don't have to wait quite that long, do we? We've sort of been given our opportunity in a world that isn't quite ready for the truth, but that's all right. We're doing all right. We're not perfect. We take our lumps and bumps, but that's all right too. We get stronger by it. And we also learn, if we're being observant, every time Satan attacks, we understand better and more clearly his weak points. So we attack them more. He's revealing himself. Not himself. Satan would never appear, I don't think. He appeared to Christ, but only at his most weakest point, as you can see there. But always you can see the appearance of Satan through those that he has deceived. And when they get all really badly excited, you just realize you found another of Satan's weak points. He's got a lot of them. He doesn't have really any defense. He's just got offense. He's offensive. And once you understand where his weaknesses are, it's either easy to get past them. And not that we want to get inside the devil's head, because there's nothing in there anyway. It's just vanity. Vanity's nothing. He's all outside, shiny. He's a pretty boy, but he's evil. That's one of the part of the deception, that people think, well, Satan's this evil, the guy in the dark suit and the horns and the evil-looking beard, pitchfork, and all the rest of that. But no, not according to the Bible. He still looks very pretty. His appearance never changed. His behavior did, and we recognize that. And look at the world around today. So many shiny things that may or may not be good. The book here, the Bible here, it shines in a way, doesn't it? It shines for us. Light. We have to still turn on the light switch because we're physical creatures. We can't read it in a dark room, but we can read it in a dark world, can't we? Because the light of the Holy Spirit is there now. We're able to see things that you couldn't before. And when you can, then you start to see the world in a way you didn't before. And sometimes that makes people mad. You know, you're not supposed to speak too much of the truth, because people get their fill of it pretty quick. But those who aren't quite ready for it yet, well, they don't have to listen, rather than us not doing what we have to be doing now. We don't light a lamp and hide it under a basket. We're warned about that as well. You know, it wasn't just an encouragement, it was a warning. Don't hide what you know. Don't be offensive by it. Present the facts, and if people take offense by it, well, that's because they're not ready yet, or they've had their opportunity and have chosen to squander it. But that's up to them. That's their freedom. So we continue today. Today is sermon number 37 already. We're making, I'm using a paper Bible for this, so, and if I look at my bookmark here, we're maybe, I guess it would seem about a quarter of our way through, which is ahead of the estimate, I would think, of the number of sermons this is going to take. And as I said, we're going video after this, so they will be audio as well for those whose internet connection can't quite handle video yet. We'll have both. The way that we're doing it now will still be there as it is, and video both. They will be both after we get this done here. Also, I should mention now, we began, and people have been asking about this as well. I get asked about this a number of times every week. People want an offline copy of Daily Bible Study because they're concerned that either we're going to get taken offline or I'm going to drop dead someday or something. And of course, both of those things will happen eventually, one way or the other. In time, we know it's going to get shut down. And I started on a PDF version of Daily Bible Study, but we ran into a difficulty with it in that if you have been reading Daily Bible Study for a while, you have noticed, no doubt, that there are a lot of links in each study that link to other studies. And the PDF version completely eliminates that. And it's very hard when I write a study, I try to make use of other studies in order to explain a particular point, a particular sentence, a particular verse, and to build upon the work that's already been done. Whereas if those links are gone, it makes it less effective in explaining things because it doesn't work. It does, depending on later versions of your PDF reader, it will go to the website from a PDF document, but the thing is then you're depending on the website to be there, and if you're reading it from the website, you don't need a PDF document to begin with anyway. So that was the reason for that. So what I've decided to do, rather than that, we're just going to put it onto a DVD, a single DVD. I've begun work on that, in which it will be a complete, independent, all-in-one copy of all of Daily Bible Study on the DVD, all the studies and the graphics and the illustrations, everything. You just pop it into your computer, and it's like you're online, and it'll be right up to date to the day in which it is copied and sent. We can start that again. So just as a matter of people who want a copy of, and also, by the way, you can still then print whichever page you want from the DVD. So that should work better. And as far as the sermons are concerned, we can do that same with those. But I want to get the studies first of all done. So we're working on that. I hope to have that ready to go in November. So people have been asking about it. So, and it makes sense, because otherwise Daily Bible Study online would last, if I weren't around, it would probably go offline in probably about 6 months. That's apart from the domain registration, which I keep about 3 years ahead. So you can see the reason there why that wouldn't go, and to turn it over to some other church, quote unquote, would really make as big a mess of it as if it went offline anyway, because there's never been an example of that where something has been taken over, for lack of a better term, and not destroyed eventually. So it would be better just for it to go offline anyway. But the copy of it on DVD up to that time, it's something that nobody can mess with. You'll have your copy of it if you want one, and there it is. So, and the more of those we can get out there, and a lot of people have been asking about it, so then the work would survive. We're not depending, because we know in the end time it's going to go offline. We know that. They all are. Everybody is. Anybody who's preaching the truth, it's going to go offline. We know that. So that's the way we can deal with that. And the other PDF version just wouldn't have done it. It would still have depended on the server to be there. I don't intend the server to go off, and don't get me wrong, it's going to be there. But you understand the point I'm making. So, beginning today, Joshua 14. And these are the countries which the children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel distributed for inheritance to them. Interesting term, countries, and we'll also put on the link of that transition from Moses and Aaron to Joshua and Eleazar, the leadership, politically, militarily, which actually Moses never had. Joshua had it all along, but now Joshua's work is combined, but the priesthood remained the same. Although actually earlier on, when Moses first came off the mountain, off Mount Sinai, the tent of meeting, there's been controversy about that because the term is used for both of them. But it was also used for the tabernacle, which was at the very heart of the camp. But the tent of meeting was outside of the camp, and that's where the tables of stone were first kept. And it was prior to the time of the establishment of the priesthood itself. And the only two that were in there at that time were Joshua and Moses. So they actually had Joshua was already well familiar with access to and guarding of those 10 commandments, those tables of stone. He was actually there at that time prior to the building of the ark for it. Verse 2, by lot was their inheritance, as the Lord commanded, by the hand of Moses, for the 9 tribes and for the half-tribe. And of course, the reason that's stated in that way is because 2.5 of the tribes, as we'll read, obtained their lands east of the Jordan River, put on the link for why east and west Manasseh. For Moses had given the inheritance of the 2 tribes, and in half tribe on the other side of Jordan, but unto the Levites he gave none inheritance among them. And that remained in effect, to interject, until the time of the division of the kingdom into Israel and Judah, in which the northern Levites, those in the northern 10 tribes, because the northern kingdom of Israel went so corrupt so fast, almost from day one, that they left. And the only ones that would have remained were the corrupt ones anyway, so they're hardly Levites as a matter of what they were intended to be. And they all moved to Judah. They eventually became corrupt there as well. We'll put the link on for how the Messiah's Levite ministry changed. But for that time, it's an important point. There were no faithful Levites in the lost 10 tribes, and that would hold true to today. So when they are gathered, that's another interesting point. Verse 4, for the children of Joseph were 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. Therefore they gave no part unto the Levites in the land save cities to dwell in, with their suburbs for their cattle and for their inheritance. As the Lord commanded Moses, so the children of Israel did, and they divided the land. Then the children of Judah came unto Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said unto him, Thou knowest the thing that the Lord said unto Moses the man of God concerning me and thee in Kadesh Barnea. 40 years old was I when Moses the servant of the Lord sent me from Kadesh Barnea to espy out the land, and I brought him word again as it was in mine heart. Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me made the heart of the people melt. But I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses sware on that day, saying, Surely the land whereon thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance, and thy children's forever, because thou hast wholly followed the Lord my God. And now behold, the Lord hath kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake his word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old. And as yet I am strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me, as my strength was then, even so is my strength now, for war, both to go out and to come in. Now therefore give me this mountain, whereof the Lord spake in that day, for thou heardest in that day how the Anakims were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him, and gave unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh Hebron for an inheritance. Hebron became therefore the inheritance of Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite unto this day, because he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. And the name of Hebron before was Kirjath Arba, which Arba was a great man among the Anakims, and the land had rest for more. So again, an interesting point there of how Hebron was given to Caleb. We don't read really all that much about Caleb, but he was just as faithful as Joshua was. We don't know as much about him, but the important point is the Lord knows as much about him, and he wasn't answerable. He wasn't some sort of a show boy, some kind of a prima donna. He was simply a servant of the Lord, and the Lord knew what he was doing, what he wasn't doing. He knew his heart, and that the same applied to Joshua, the same applied to everybody. Joshua chapter 15, continuing. This then was the lot of the tribe of the children of Judah, by their families, even to the border of Edom, in the wilderness of Zin. Southward was the uttermost part of the south coast, and their south border was from the shore of the salt sea, from the bay that looketh southward, and it went out to the south side, to Makle Abarim, and passed along to Zin, and ascended up on the south side unto Kadesh Barnea, and passed along to Hezron, and up to Adar, and fetched a compass to Karkah. And of course we're estimating approximating these pronunciations of the Hebrew because they were, of course, transliterations from the original Hebrew. They were spoken by men with an English accent of 1611, as they would have pronounced it, and even that could have an effect upon all of the rest of it without getting into the sacred name thing, in which we have only 4 letters, folks. That's all there is. Yud, He, Vav, He. And from that, people have gotten Jehovah and all the Joshua and all the variants of that. When all we have those 4 letters, you can pretty much guess whatever that was. But even as they are pronounced, as it's transliterated, not translated, but transliterated, the sound of one word or letter from one language as it is pronounced in another. But this is what we're given, and obviously it's enough, isn't it? If it all was impossible to read or impossible to do, then we would be given an impossible task, but we're not, are we? And that's been true from the very beginning. All the various tongues of the scriptures as they were given to people all around the world. Verse 4, from thence it passed toward Asmon, and went out unto the river Egypt, and the goings out of that coast were at the sea. This shall be your south coast. And the east border, and by the way, that seems to take in an awful lot of the Sinai, doesn't it? Kadesh Barnea, and over to the river. And we'll also put on the link for the seed of Abraham from Nile to the Euphrates. Just who that was talking to, because the Bible's very plain about that as well. The other children of Abraham, it's their land. Verse 5, and the east border was the salt sea, even unto the end of Jordan, and their border in the north quarter was from the bay of the sea at the uttermost part of Jordan. And the border went up to Beth Haglah, and passed along by the north of Beth Arabah, and the border went up to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. And the border went up toward Debir, from the valley of Achor, and so northward, looking toward Gilgal, that is, before the going up to Adamim, which is on the south side of the river, and the border passed toward the waters in Shemesh, and the goings out thereof, when we're at En Rogel. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom, unto the south side of the Jebusite, the same as Jerusalem, and the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom, westward, which is at the end of the valley of the giants northward. And to interject there, the border of the city of Judah, as we just read here, was the south, the Jebusite. The Jebusites held it actually until it was a foreign city, the Israelites, until the time of King David. He's the one that took it for Israel. But the border of Israel, of Judah, was at the south side of Jerusalem, and at the other side was Benjamin. So, and when the split happened, you can see how Benjamin and Judah remained as the south. Why and why they would have been the Benjamites would have had a greater incentive to remain, to choose Judah as their, to remain in Judah. Even Rehoboam was not a very good king; he was a foolish young man. But perhaps they were looking beyond, and plus they had the connection, considering, by the way, Saul, who was of Benjamin. And again, if Saul had not proved to be an unfit king, consider the connection there, because the connection of Judah and Benjamin, those first 2 kings, were Benjamin and Judah, as to say Saul and David. So geographically, it even proves what actually happened historically. It couldn't have been any other way. And how it led to how the division happened beyond that, because the division of the northern kingdom happened, therefore, north of Benjamin. They sort of served like a buffer between the southernmost border of what became the kingdom, northern kingdom of Israel, and Judah to the south. And what is today actually called Israel is actually Judah, because it's the people of Judah, the restoration of that southern kingdom. We'll put on the link for Israel of Judah. It's amazing how all the pieces, there's just no loose ends anywhere. Everything fits. There's just nothing geographically, historically, all the attitudes. You can understand, if you understand this little bit of geography, you can understand why the Benjamites were thinking what they were thinking. And how leaving, they really couldn't have left, because they were at the capital city. They either had to remain or simply take it over, and they already had a split on their hands. In effect, from what they would have been looking at, a civil war. And then to further divide their forces again, because keeping in mind they're outnumbered. There were 10 tribes against 2, or the 3 the Levites were about to conduct. Verse 9, and the border was drawn up from the top of the hill unto the fountain of the water of Nephtoah, and went out to the cities of Mount Ephraim, and the border was drawn to Bela, which is Kiriath Jearim, and the border compassed from Belath westward unto Mount Seir, and passed along unto the side of Mount Jearim, which is Cheshalon, on the north side, and went down to Beth Shemesh, and passed on to Timnah. And the border went out unto the side of Ekron, northward, and the border was drawn to Shikron, and passed along to Mount Bela, and went out unto Jabneel, and the goings out of the border were the sea. And keep in mind there was no J there, by the way. There wasn't actually in the English language either. It was actually Jerusalem in Hebrew is Yerushalayim with a Y, the pronunciation with a Y. Keeping in mind they don't use the Roman alphabet. There's no J, and there wasn't in the English language either. Obviously there was in the time of the King James translation, but there wasn't prior to that. English itself did not exist in the time prior to 1,000 years ago. It was one of the Germanic languages. If you ever try to learn German, the German language, you'll find it's relatively easy. A lot of the words are actually the same. You can recognize it. Their common origin. Verse 12, and the west border was to the great sea, and the coast thereof. This is the coast of the children of Judah, round about according to their families. And unto Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, he gave a part among the children of Judah, according to the commandment of the Lord, to Joshua, even the city of Arba, the father of Anak, which city is Hebron. And of course, if the split had happened at that time, Caleb would have been in the south, as here in Judah, as we just read, and Joshua, as he is buried today, is up in Ephraim, which is in the northern, would have been in the northern 10 tribes kingdom. Verse 14, and Caleb drove thence the three sons of Anak, Shishai, and Ahiman, and Talmai, the children of Anak. And he went up thence to the inhabitants of Debir, and the name of Debir before was Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, he that smiteth Kiriath Sepher and taketh it to him, will I give Achish my daughter to wife. And Othniel the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it, and he gave him Achish his daughter to wife. So, to interject there, cousins. Verse 18, it came to pass, as he came unto him, that she moved him to ask of her father a field, and she lighted off her ass. And Caleb said unto her, what wouldest thou? Who answered, give me a blessing, for thou hast given me a south land, give me also springs of water. And he gave her the upper springs and the nether springs. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah according to their families. And the uttermost cities of the tribe of the children of Judah toward the coast of Edom southward were Kabzeel and Eder and Jagur, and Kinah and Dimonah, and Adadath, and Kadesh, and Hazor, and Ithnan, Ziph, and Tilam, and Bealoth, and Hazor, and Hadattah, Kirioth, and Hezron, which is Hazor, Imam, and Shema, and Moladah, and Hazagadah, and Heshmon, and Beth Pelet, and Shual, and Beersheba, and Bizjothjah, Bela, and Emim, and Azim, and El Tolad, and Chesil, and Hormah, and Ziklag, and Madmenah, and Sansanah, and Leboth, and Shillim, and Anim, and Rimmon, all the cities of 20 and 9, with their villages. And keeping in mind they just had arrived, these towns and cities had of course already existed. Verse 33, and in the valley Eshtal, and Zoriah, and Ashma, Zonah, and Engalnim, Tapuna, and Enam, Jarmuth, and Adullam, Sukal, Azekah, and Sharaim, and Adathaim, Gederothim, 14 cities with their villages. Zenam and Hadeshah, Migdal Gad, and Diddleim, and Mizpah and Joktheel, Lachish and Boscath and Eglon, Chemon, Lanmam, and Kithlish, and Gederoth, Beth Dagon, Neamah, Mekkedah, 16 cities with their villages. Libnah and Ether and Ashnan and Jipthath, Ashna and Nezib, and Keilah and Achzib, and Mareshah, 9 cities with their villages, Ekron with her towns and her villages, from Ekron even unto the sea, all that lay near Ashdod with their villages, Ashdod with her towns and her villages, Gaza with her towns and her villages, unto the river of Egypt, and to the great sea and the border thereof. And as we said, that it seems to extend at least along the coast part, very close into Egypt, which isn't very far away because it's actually today the border between them. So it's not that far. How far? The question is how far south it would have been. 48, verse 48, and in the mountains, Shamir and Jeter, Sokal, and Dunah and Kirjath Senah, which is Deber, and Anab, and Eshtimah, and Anim, and Goshen, and Holam, and Gilon, 11 cities with their villages, Arab, and Duma, and Esh-Hian, and Janam, and Beth Tapuna, and Aphekah, and Humta, and Kirjath Arba, which is Hebron, and Zior, 9 cities with their villages, Meon, Carmel, and Ziph, and Judah, and Jezreel, and Jokdim, Zanoah, Cain, Gibeah, Timnah, 10 cities with their villages, Halhul, Bethzer, and Gedor, and Merath, and Beth Anoth, and Eltikon, 6 cities with their villages, Kirjath Baal, which is Kirjath Jearim, and Jebah, 2 cities with their villages. In the wilderness, Beth Araba, Midim, and Sikkah, and Nibshan, and the city of Salt, and En-Gedi, 6 cities with their villages. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day. And as we said, they continued to do so actually until the time of King David. They were able to withhold it. But again, you can see there that what they would have taken, if they had taken it, they would have only been able to go so far because at the northern side of the city was the tribe of Benjamin. It was actually a border city. It was a landmark. But it was not taken until, and you can see why they would have done that. The valleys that ran around the city, which are still evident today, it makes sense. It's natural borders that you could spot. If you can't use a river, you can use a valley or a mountain as landmarks. Towns and villages can come and go, but something that a geographic feature that lasts for millennia, such as a river. And although actually, as we've seen in the news just this past week, the Sea of Galilee is very much drying up, and the Jordan River is itself, which depends upon the flow of primarily a large part of it, of the Sea of Galilee, or Lake of Galilee, which is a freshwater lake, is really down. They're having a big problem with that. The rainfall has been down, plus they're siphoning it off in order to turn the desert into agricultural land, and that only works to a point, because if you're not getting the rain for your crops and you're going to just pump the river dry, and the river was depending on rain as well for the most part, sooner or later, and without that, you see the problems they're getting there. It may work very well for a very short term, but eventually you're going to have dry places where the river and the lake used to be, and they're seeing that now. Joshua chapter 16. And the lot of the children of Joseph fell from Jordan by Jericho unto the water of Jericho on the east, to the wilderness that goeth up from Jericho throughout Mount Bethel, and goeth out from Bethel to Luz, and passeth along unto the borders of Arki to Ataroth, and goeth down westward to the coast of Jephthah, unto the coast of Beth Horon, the nether, and to Gezer, and the goings out thereof are at the sea. So the children of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, took their inheritance. And to interject there, keeping in mind the other half of Manasseh was on the other side, but it wasn't just a haphazard split. They were split along clans within Manasseh. We'll put on the link for why East and West Manasseh. Verse 5, and the border of the children of Ephraim according to their families was thus, even the border of their inheritance on the east side was Ataroth Adar unto Beth Horan the upper, and the border went out toward the sea to Mikmethah on the north side, and the border went about eastward toward Ta'aphnath Shiloh, and passed by it on the east to Janohah, and it went down from Janohah to Ataroth and to Nearath, and came to Jericho, and went out at Jordan. The border went out from Tappuah westward unto the river Kanah, and the goings out thereof were at the sea. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Ephraim by their families. And to interject, that of course includes Joshua, where he is buried today. He is buried in that territory. Verse 9, and the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities with their villages. And they drave not of the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites unto this day, and serve unto tribute. And as we've mentioned in earlier studies and sermons, the Canaanites were like distant cousins, at least to the people of Judah, because the first Jews had a Canaanite mother. Judah, at that time, could not have married a Jew because the Jews were his descendants, or even him, keeping in mind that Jew is merely an abbreviation of Judah, as is Jude and the various other abbreviations that people have used. So it wasn't a matter of him being able to marry even an Israelite at that time, because all there were his sister, and by that time other children that were being born, nieces, but that wasn't going to work. So he married a Canaanite woman, and the first two of his children, we'll put the link on for who were the first Jews, a rather startling beginning for what many people seem to think, that as though the people of Judah were created in the Garden of Eden or something, and they weren't. They were created as much from a Canaanite woman as they were from Judah himself. And again, the lesson of that being simply that anyone can become the chosen people racially, if you want to use that word, simply because it's not a matter of who you are, it's what you do. And the people of Judah themselves, throughout history, I mean, they haven't been very well, even though the Messiah was one of them, he had to be one of somebody. They haven't had a very good situation, as all of Israel hasn't either, it's not just the tribe of Judah, of recognizing the Messiah. I mean, to this day they don't. I mean, some of the things that the people, they're very careful not to say it around Christian professing people usually, because they do depend a lot of support on the Christian professing world. And you do realize that the state of Judah today, or Israel today, rejects Christ officially. You do realize that, don't you? I mean, they have to be there. That's fine as a matter of their prophecy, fulfilling the prophecy. But the thing is, until they stop rejecting Christ and accepting the true Messiah, they are not a godly nation. They are not of the Lord, and that's the reality of it right now. Just as is not most of the Christian professing world when they worship the Roman religion that was invented largely by the Roman Emperor Constantine. Put in the links for that. Joshua chapter 17, there was also a lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph, to wit, for Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, because he was a man of war, therefore he had Gilead and Bashan. There was also a lot for the rest of the children of Manasseh by their families, for the children of Abiezer, and for the children of Helek, and for the children of Asriel, and for the children of Shechem, and for the children of Epher, and for the children of Shemida. These were the male children of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, by their families. But Zolephahad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, but daughters, and these are the names of his daughters, Mahlah, and Noah, Hagah, and Milcah, and Tirzah. And they came near before Eleazar the priest, and before Joshua the son of Nun, and before the princes, saying, The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brethren. Therefore, according to the commandment of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among the brethren of their father. Now, to interject, keep this point in mind. Continuing, we'll come back. Continuing, and there fell 10 portions to Manasseh beside the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were on the other side of Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh had an inheritance among his sons, and the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. And the coast of Manasseh was from Asher to Michmithah, and that lieth before Shechem, and the border went along on the right hand unto the inhabitants of En-Tappuah. Now Manasseh had the land of Tappuah, but Tappuah on the border of Manasseh belonged to the children of Ephraim. And the coast descended unto the river Kenah. Southward of the river, these cities of Ephraim are among the cities of Manasseh. The coast of Manasseh was also on the north side of the river, and the goings out of it were at the sea. We'll just stop there. Well, good here as anywhere else. The daughters inherited land. Daughters of Manasseh. They asked it, but the principle was made a law throughout Israel. They inherited land. Now, question: why is there no tribe of Dinah? Ever wondered about that? Why isn't there? It wasn't as though women could not inherit land or could not have descendants, because obviously they did. Christ himself being a prime example of it, genetically, actual physical genetics. It was through Mary, not Joseph. But what about Dinah? Why is there no tribe of Dinah? And we'll put on the link for that study done there. It may well be because she was assaulted, because she was therefore defiled, quote unquote. Perhaps, I think, she was never married, and she had no descendants. That's the reason, logically, because otherwise they would have been mentioned. Nobody's left out, and this is obvious proof of it, as a matter of any line. And this line of Dinah was as much a line from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, Israel, as any of her brothers were, and this again proves it. So I'll put on the link for that study. I don't think she had any children. I don't think there was a tribe of Dinah, because there were no Dinahites. Because, again, whether she would have been married after, it was a notorious incident. She would not have been regarded as much marriageable as other women at that time. I think she was discriminated against in that way because of the way of nature things. And that happened as well. When it happened, for example, Tamar, a daughter of David, when she was assaulted, she remained unmarried afterward. As unfair and as grossly wrong as that is, that's what happened, and I think it's what happened to Dinah too. It doesn't say that, we may be wrong, but otherwise there's no reason there wouldn't be a tribe of Dinah, because these daughters continued on. We'll come back to them anyway, a question that they had about the land, but as far as their own descendants, they were not a matter of, it was not sort of a non-existence. It wasn't like that at all. Verse 10, southward it was Ephraim's, and northward it was Manasseh's, and the sea is his border, and they met together in Asher on the north, and in Issachar on the east. And Manasseh had in Issachar and in Asher Beth Sheman and her towns, and Iblim and her towns, and the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, and the inhabitants of Endor and her towns, and inhabitants of Tanakh and her towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and her towns, even 3 countries. Yet the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, but the Canaanites dwell in that land. Yet it came to pass, When the children of Israel were waxen strong, they put the Canaanites to tribute, but did not utterly drive them out. And the children of Joseph spake unto Joshua, saying, Why hast thou given me but one lot and one portion to inherit, seeing I am a great people, for as much as the Lord hath blessed me hitherto? And Joshua answered them, If thou be a great people, then get thee up to the wood country, and cut town for thyself there, in the land of the Perizzites and of the giants, if Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee. And he answered them, there they were standing, saying, Well, we're great and we're wonderful. So Joshua answered them in a way that made them prove it. If you're so great and so powerful, then go do something about it. Don't just stand there expecting me to give you something. Verse 16, And the children of Joseph said, The hill is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, both they who are of Beth-shean and her towns, they are of the valley of Jezreel. And Joshua spake unto the house of Joseph, even to Ephraim and to Manasseh, saying, Thou art a great people, and hast great power, thou shalt not have one lot only. But the mountain shall be thine, for it is wood, and thou shalt cut it down, and the outgoings of it shall be thine, for thou shalt drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong. And of course the Anglo-Israelism theory very much depended upon not only Ephraim and Manasseh and the other 10 tribes, but the fact that they are within those tribes that migrated outward in the same way the people of Judah did. They're scattered around yet have their own countries and so on. Judah is the only one that's identifiable. Actually, Benjamin, for the most part, have lost their identity within Judah because they're called Jews for the most part, when in fact they're Benjamites. We'll put on link for why Paul sometimes called himself a Jew and sometimes he called himself a Benjamite, because the answer being he was both. He was a Benjamite by tribal ancestry, but he was a Jew as a matter of observing Judaism, at least prior to the time of his conversion. We'll put on link for Judaism. And he was also of the kingdom of Judah as it existed in the time that it existed as a kingdom, and then its restorations variously from after the Babylonian destruction and their return as Judah, and then what happened to them in the Greek period, where the Hasmoneans established in response to the original abomination of desolation. They were Jewish kings. It's really the restoration of it, and then later on the various revolts at the time of the Romans and so on. They finally had enough and fought them. Joshua chapter 18, And the whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh, and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there, and the land was subdued before them. And again, why didn't they set it up at Jerusalem? Well, Jerusalem was a Jebusite city. They never took it till such time of David. And there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes which had not yet received their inheritance. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, How long are ye slack to go to possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers hath given you? Give out from among you 3 men for each tribe, and I will send them, and they shall rise and go through the land, and describe it according to the inheritance of them, and they shall come again to me. So Joshua sent out a survey party. That's really what he was doing, to interject. Continuing, verse 5, And they shall divide it into 7 parts. Judah shall abide in their coasts on the south, and the house of Joseph shall abide in their coasts on the north. Ye shall therefore describe the land into 7 parts, and bring the description hither to me, that I may cast lots for you here before the Lord your God. And again, that's another point that's often overlooked. There were apart from the 2.5 tribes east of the Jordan, which had their land. Whether they would have had that land or not, as we said, if they had originally gone in through the Negev, there would have been no going around the Dead Sea and then approaching from the east through the Jordan, and therefore if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have been where they obtained the land in what is today the kingdom of Jordan. Whether all of that would have happened or not, but the people of Judah in the south got their land first, The people of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, then got their land. You can see how it was done. They were building geographically. Again, you can see that they weren't just all over the place, haphazardly, all over the place. It was done systematically, plainly. And it's continuing here now. Verse 7, But the Levites hath no part among you, for the priesthood of the Lord is their inheritance. And Gad and Reuben, half the tribe of Manasseh, have received their inheritance beyond Jordan on the east, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. And that's an interesting term as well, which Moses gave them. And Moses is actually buried over there, somewhere in there. Verse 8, And the men arose and went away, and Joshua charged them that went to describe the land, saying, Go and walk through the land and describe it, and come again to me, that I may here cast lots for you before the Lord in Shiloh. And the men went and passed through the land and described it by cities into 7 parts in a book, and came again to Joshua to the host at Shiloh. And Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord, and there Joshua divided the land unto the children of Israel according to their divisions. And the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families, and the coast of their lot came forth between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph. And their border on the north side was from Jordan, and the border went up to the side of Jericho on the north side, and went up through the mountains westward, and the goings out thereof were at the wilderness of Beth-aven. And the border went over from thence toward Luz, to the side of Luz, which is Bethel, southward, and the border descended to Ataroth Adar, near the hill that lieth on the south side of the nether Beth-horon. And the border was drawn thence, and compassed the corner of the sea southward, from the hill that lieth before Beth-horon, southward, and the goings out thereof were at Kirjath-baal, which is Kirjath-jearim, in the city of children of Judah. This was the west quarter. And the south quarter was from the end of Kirjath-jearim, and the border went out on the west, went out toward the well of waters of Nephtoah. And the border came down to the end of the mountain that lieth before the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is in the valley of the giants on the north, and descended to the valley of Hinnom, to the south side of Jebusi on the south, and descended to En-rogel, and was drawn from the north, and went forth to En-shemesh, and went forth toward Gileath, which is over against the going up of Adumim, and descended to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben, and passed along toward the side over against Arabah northward, and went down unto Arabah, and the border passed along to the side of Beth-hoglah northward, and the outgoings of the border were at the north bay of the Salt Sea at the south end of Jordan. This was the south coast. And the Jordan was the border of it on the east side. This was the inheritance of the children of Benjamin by the coast thereof, round about according to their families. And to interject, there's sometimes what appears to be repetition is actually a defining of the border of another tribe before they were given their inheritance on the other side of the border. So it's not actually a repetition as much as it is a double statement of the border of those other people over there who are your brothers, but they're now on the other side of your border, whereas before it was a frontier. Verse 21, Now the cities of the tribe of the children of Benjamin according to their families were Jericho and Beth-hoglah, and the valley of Kezis, and Beth-arabah, and Zim-marim, and Beth-el, or Bethel, and Avim, and Parah, and Ophrah, and Cheparhaim, Monai, and Ophni, and Gaba, 12 cities with their villages. I'm trying to follow along these hyphenated pronunciations in the King James, which, as I've said, a Hebrew speaker wouldn't have a clue what we're saying here, but this is what we're given to work with. Verse 25, Gibeon and Ramah and Beeroth and Mizpah and Chephirah and Mazah and Rechem and Urpil, and Tar Allah, and Zillah, Eleph, and Jebusi, which is Jerusalem, Gibeath, and Curioth, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to their families. And again, there is mentioned the Jebusite city, or Jebusi, here is spoken of as belonging to Benjamin, not Judah, but their border, it was one of the border points of Benjamin, of the tribe, and whereas Judah was on the south side of the city. And again, you can see why they wouldn't want to leave their city, whereas the northern 10 tribes, which were north of Benjamin, already had their capital cities north of Benjamin. And so that's how it happened. It was a natural split. It just like a creased piece of paper, that if you ever go to tear the paper, if this crease is there, it's going to tear along that crease. And that's exactly what happened. Joshua chapter 19. And the second lot came forth to Simeon, even for the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families, and their inheritance was within the inheritance of the children of Judah. For they had in their inheritance Beersheba, and Sheba, and Molada, and Hazar Shual, and Bela, and Azam, and Eltolad, Bethuel, and Hormon, and Ziklag, and Beth Ma, Kiboth, and Hazareth, and Beth Lesheba, Shahan, 13 cities, and their villages. Ain, Rimmon, Ether, and Ashan, 4 cities, and their villages. All the villages that were round about these cities, to Belath Bir, Ramoth of the south. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Simeon according to their families. Out of the portion of the children of Judah was the inheritance of the children of Simeon, for the part of the children of Judah was too much for them. Therefore the children of Simeon had their inheritance within the inheritance of them. And the third lot came up for the children of Zebulun, according to their families, and the border of the inheritance was unto Sered, and the border went up toward the sea, and Mar-alah, and reached to Dabasheth, and reached to the river that is before Jokneam, and turned from Sered eastward toward the sunrising unto the border of Kisloth-Tabor, and then goeth out to Debarath, and goeth up to Japhia, and from thence passeth on along on the east to Gittahefer, to Ittachazin, and goeth out to Rimmon Methoar, to Nea, and the border compass it on the north side to Henoth. And the goings thereof are in the valley of Jetheel. And by the way, as well, the tribe of Simeon there, as it's described within the territorial boundaries, is completely within, surrounded by the tribe of Judah, which is in the south. So there is the question, the controversy of what happened to them when the northern tribes split from Judah, when in fact we only read thereafter as the tribe of Judah and Benjamin remaining to become the kingdom of Judah. What about Simeon then? Did they go to the north? Did they forsake their land and move northward? Or did they forsake their identity and become completely lost as a matter of their tribal identity? Well, we know that's not true because there are later references to Simeonites in the south, so it could have been a little bit of both. But as far as what happened to them, it's the one, they're the one tribe that does not completely explain itself just by what we read here and what subsequently happened later on. But there are other examples as well, though. Dan, for example, had a tribal area in the south. It wasn't enough for them, so they went up and obtained land in the north. And you can look at it that way from perhaps what happened. The same thing to Simeon, is just not recorded because it happened later on. We'll put on the link for Dan's Galilee Panhandle. It is not unprecedented that could have happened, but it's one of those curiosities that is not fully explained. If we needed to know, we would, because it would be there in black and white, plain and simple. But it is not, and so people will discuss it, and without ever really coming to, even perhaps someone could have a better argument than someone else, but unless the data is there, the factual data, you're not going to come to an absolute conclusion. Not that that matters for a lot of things anyway, because people there are many black and white things in the Bible that people will ignore anyway. So for whatever reason, but Simeon's a curiosity. Continuing verse 15, and Ketah and Nahalal and Shimron and Idalah and Bethlehem, 12 cities and the villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Zebulun according to their families, these cities with their villages. And the fourth lot came up to Issachar for the children of Issachar according to their families, and their border was toward Jezreel and Chisraloth and Shunem and Shaparam and Shiphuron and Rehathroth and Rabbith and Kisyon and Abez and Remath and Engelnim and Enhaddah and Bethpazzez. And as I said, I'm trying to read these according to the hyphenated, the way they're spelled with the hyphenated pronunciation or attempts at transliteration here, and this is what we're getting. And the coast reacheth to Tabor and Shahazimah and Beth Shemesh, and the outgoings of their border were at Jordan, 16 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Issachar according to the families and cities and the villages. And the fifth lot came out for the tribe of the children of Asher according to their families, and their border was Helkath and Hali and Betin and Aksaph, so that and Alam Melech and Amad and Mishael reacheth to Carmel westward, and to Shibhor Libnath, and turneth toward the sun rising to Beth Dagon, and reacheth to Zebulun, to the valley of Jiphthael toward the north side of Beth Emek and Neiel, and goeth out to Kabul on the left hand, and Hebron and Rehob and Hammon and Kenah, even unto great Zidon. And then the coast turneth to Ramah, and to the strong city Tyre, and the coast turneth to Hosah, and outgoings thereof are at the sea from the coast of Akzib. Ummah also, and Aphek, and Rehob, 22 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Asher, according to their families, these cities with their villages. The sixth lot came out to the children of Naphtali, even for the children of Naphtali, according to their families, and their coast was from Heleph, from Elon to Zanam, Nim, and Adami, Nekab, and Jabneel unto Lechem, and the outgoings thereof were at Jordan. And then the coast turneth westward to Asnath Tabor, and goeth out from thence to Hugok, and reacheth to Zebulun on the south side, and reacheth to Asher on the west side, and to Judah upon Jordan toward the sun rising. And the fenced cities are Ziddim, Zer, Hammam, Rakim, Kinnereth, and Adamah, and Ramah, and Hazor, Kedesh, and Endre, and En-Hazor, and Iron, and Migdal, Horem, Beth Anath, and Beth Shemesh, 19 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Naphtali, it according to their families, cities, and the villages. And seventh lot came out for the tribe of the children of Dan, according to their families, and the coast of the inheritance was Zorah, and Eshtaol, and Shemesh, and Shalabin, and Ajalam, and Jilath, and Elon, and Thimnah, and Ekron, and El Tekah, and Gibeath, and Belath, and Jihad, and Benebarak, and Gath Rimmon, and Me Jarkon, and Rickon, with the border before Japho. And the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them. Therefore the children of Dan went up to fight against Lishem, and took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and possessed it, and dwelt therein, and called Leshem Dan, after the Dan of their father. And again, Dan is near in the area, right close to where Simeon was completely enclosed. And Simeon's territory was relatively small, so maybe they did the same thing. And Dan was not part of the southern kingdom of Judah. They became part of the lost 10 tribes, even though their original territory was in the south, but became Judah. And Simeon, the same thing. So there's precedent there. Whatever reason, Simeon is not a very prominent tribe anyway, as a matter of the reasoning that was there for the time being. They're prominent as a matter of the equality of the tribes of Israel and how that was worked out prophetically, but for the most part, you can see there how that particular split happened. And again, it was not just sort of carved in stone, no pun intended, because their border of Israel, the very famous Dan to Beersheba, that Dan, that saying would not have happened if the people of Dan had not decided that their territory in the south wasn't enough for them, so they went way north. There was no way they could have done it otherwise without getting into a fight with some other tribe to take their land away from them. So they had two choices. They could either go to the south, which was the desert, the Negev, which was pretty remote, or they could go farther north up toward Tyre, which was less desert, a more fertile area, so they took that. But they were widely split in that region. And again, you can see how it could have happened with Simeon. Simeon were right next door. They might have decided the same thing. Verse 48, this is the inheritance of the tribe of Dan according to their families, these cities with their villages. When they had made an end of dividing the land for inheritance by their coasts, the children of Israel gave an inheritance to Joshua, the son of Nun, among them. According to the word of the Lord, they gave him the city which he asked, even Timnath Serah on Mount Ephraim, and he built the city and dwelt therein. These are the inheritances which Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel divided for an inheritance by lot in Shiloh before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So they made an end of dividing the country. So part of it was set according to, and you notice when they set out the surveying party, he didn't just send any particular tribe to do it, he sent representatives of each of those tribes. So you can be sure there was no favoritism, at least as a matter of no one being able to write a report that favored their particular tribe. Not that it would have mattered anyway, because they were still subject to the lots. So that in itself should have made it even more. You can see the genius in that if you don't know which lot you're going to get, you want to make sure they're all equal. You know, you wouldn't want to have one really big one, one really little one, because you might get stuck with the little one, because you're still subject to the lot afterwards. So you can see the fairness principle there as well as it came out. But even then, for some people, they decided Dan, for example, wasn't enough. So Joshua said, "Go get some more," and they did. But they had to go way far north to do it. Joshua chapter 20. The Lord also spake unto Joshua, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Appoint out for you cities of refuge, whereof I spake unto you by the hand of Moses, that the slayer that killeth any person unawares and unwittingly may flee thither, and they shall be your refuge from the avenger of blood. And when he that doth flee unto one of those cities shall stand at the gate, entering of the gate of the city, and shall declare his cause in the ears of the elders of that city, that they shall take him into the city unto them, and give him a place, that he may dwell among them. And if the avenger of blood pursue after him, then they shall not deliver the slayer up into his hand, because he smote his neighbor unwittingly, and hated him not before time. And he shall dwell in that city until he stand before the congregation for judgment, and until the death of the high priest that shall be in those days. Then shall the slayer return and come unto his own city, and unto his own house, unto the city from whence he fled. And they appointed Kadesh in Galilee, in Mount Naphtali, and Shechem in Mount Ephraim, and Kirjath Arba, which is Hebron, in the mountain of Judah. And on the other side Jordan by Jericho eastward, they assigned Bezer, in the wilderness upon the plain, out of the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth in Gilead, out of the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan, out of the tribe of Manasseh. So again, across the river, those eastern tribes. These were the cities appointed for all the children of Israel, and for the stranger that sojourneth among them, that whosoever killeth any person at unawares might flee thither, and not die by the hand of the avenger of blood, until he stood before the congregation. So the justice there as well, there was no vigilantism allowed. It wasn't as though you could call the police and have the police come or anything like that. It wasn't quite like that, but there was still a justice system. You were answerable to the jury in which the entire city was, in effect, the jury. The principle's still there in juries today, and perhaps even more so then because it was a matter within family. It was not a matter where a jury would be on the side of for or against some individual because he was different in some way, whether it be racially or his background or his language or whatever about him, his religion, whatever, because they were pretty uniform. It was literally being judged by your own peers at the time. But you can understand why at the same time they would need protection from someone, a family member, or someone who's had a family member killed, albeit accidentally. When you're grieving, the emotion is a very strong incentive to do things that would not be done if the grief was not there. So obviously, to let that be decided, and then once that has been decided, the person either obeys the law or commits murder, because innocent person, if they're declared innocent, you cannot go and kill them. The right of self-defense is very biblical, but the right of murder, not murdering anyone for any reason, is also very biblical. Joshua chapter 21. Then came near the heads of the fathers of the Levites unto Eleazar the priest, and unto Joshua the son of Nun, and unto the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And they spake unto them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, saying, The Lord commanded by the hand of Moses to give us cities to dwell in with the suburbs thereof for our cattle. And the children of Israel gave unto the Levites out of their inheritance at the commandment of the Lord these cities and their suburbs. And to interject there, Levites are a special case, and of course, to understand, as we emphasize every opportunity we get, the Lord God was later born as Jesus Christ. He was the one that established that Levite priesthood. We'll put on who is the Lord, the origin of the Levite priesthood, and what happened to that priesthood, how it changed to the point where when he was born as a man, they didn't recognize him. And again, how there were no Levites in the northern 10 tribes because they went to the south when the north, Jeroboam, he was corrupt almost literally from day one. The border markers were both the calves, very much the same as the thing they did at the base of Mount Sinai. It would just seem whenever they fell, it was like the same puddle they kept falling into. The idolatry was always there, even after a lengthy amount of time. It always seemed to be the same thing. Verse 4, and the lot came, I'll put on the link for all those studies. And the lot came out for the families of the Kohathites and the children of Aaron the priest, which were of the Levites, had lot out of the tribe of Judah and out of the tribe of Simeon and out of the tribe of Benjamin, 13 cities. And again, there you see how Simeon is included within there, and they had to be at that time because their land was completely encircled by Judah, and yet when later on when the split happened, as we just discussed, they weren't there, and it was not there, and they were never mentioned again as a matter of, and yet there are Simeonites mentioned subsequently later on in history further, but we'll know when we need to know. Verse 5, and the rest of the children of Kohath had by lot out of the families of the tribe of Ephraim, and out of the tribe of Dan, and out of the half-tribe of Manasseh, 10 cities. And the children of Gershom had by lot out of the families of the tribe of Issachar, and out of the tribe of Asher, and out of the tribe of Naphtali, and out of the half-tribe of Manasseh in Bashan, 13 cities. And the children of Merari, by their families, had out of the tribe of Reuben, and out of the tribe of Gad, and out of the tribe of Zebulun, 12 cities. So again, you can see there, just as the east and western portions of Manasseh were divided along clan lines, so too the Levites of Israel were divided along clan lines as they were distributed among the other tribes. So again, the family identity, by then they were big enough that clans within the tribe were very much there, and families and so on. So you can see there that the order that it was done, it wasn't just a breaking up of families. Verse 8, and the children of Israel gave by lot unto the Levites these cities with their suburbs, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. And they gave out of the tribe of the children of Judah and out of the tribe of the children of Simeon these cities which are here mentioned by name, which the children of Aaron, being of the families of Kohathites, who were of the children of Levi, had, for theirs was the first lot. And they gave them the city of Arba, the the father of Anak, which city is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah, with the suburbs thereof round about it, and the fields of the city, and the villages thereof they gave to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, for his possession. Thus they gave to the children of Aaron the priest Hebron with her suburbs, to be a city of refuge for the slayer, and Libnah with her suburbs, and Jetur with her suburbs, and Eshtemoa with her suburbs, and Holon with her suburbs, and Debir with her suburbs, and Ain with her suburbs, and Jutah with her suburbs, and Beth Shemesh with her suburbs, 9 cities out of those 2 tribes. And out of the tribe of Benjamin, Gibeon with her suburbs, Geba with her suburbs, Anath by her suburbs, Alon with her suburbs, 4 cities. All the cities of the children of Aaron, the priests, were 13 cities with their suburbs. And the families of the children of Kohath, the Levites, of which remained of the children of Kohath, even they had cities of their lot out of the tribe of Ephraim. For they gave them Shechem with her suburbs in Mount Ephraim to be a city of refuge for the slayer, and Gezer with her suburbs, and Kibzaim with her suburbs, and Beth Horon with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Dan, Eltekeh with her suburbs, Gibbethoth with her suburbs, Ajalon with her suburbs, Gath-Rimmon with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the half-tribe of Manasseh, Tanakh with her suburbs, Gath-Rimmon with her suburbs, 2 cities. All the cities were 10 with their suburbs for the families of the children of Kohath that remained. And unto the children of Gershon, of the families of the Levites, out of the other half of the tribe of Manasseh, they gave Golan in Bashan with her suburbs to be a city of refuge for the slayer, and Beth-Shetirah with her suburbs, 2 cities. And out of the tribe of Issachar, Kishon with her suburbs, Dabereth with her suburbs, Jarmuth with her suburbs, En-Ganim with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Asher, Mishal with her suburbs, Abdon with her suburbs, Helkah with her suburbs, and Rehob with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Naphtali, Kedash in Galilee with her suburbs, to be a city of refuge for the slayer, and Hamoth Dor with her suburbs, and Kartan with her suburbs, 3 cities. And all the cities of the Gershonites according to their families were 13 cities with their suburbs. And unto the families of the children of Merari, of the rest of the Levites, out of the tribe of Zebulun, Jokneam with her suburbs, Karta with her suburbs, Dimnah with her suburbs, Nahalal with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Reuben, Bezer with her suburbs, Jahaz with her suburbs, Kedethmoth with her suburbs, Mephilath with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Gad, Ramoth in Gilead with her suburbs, to be a city of refuge for the slayer, in Mahanaim with her suburbs, Heshbon with her suburbs, Jazer with her suburbs, 4 cities in all. So all the cities of the children of Merari by their families, which were remaining of the families of the Levites, were by their lot 12 cities. And I'll put on the link also for Levites, because even the Levites themselves of the clans within Levi were given specific tasks as the priestly service. Verse 41, all the cities of the Levites within the possession of the children of Israel were 48 cities with their suburbs. These cities were every one with their suburbs round about them. Thus were all these cities. And the Lord gave unto Israel all the land which he sware to give unto their fathers, and they possessed it and dwelt therein. And the Lord gave them rest round about, according to all that he sware unto their fathers. And there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. The Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. There failed not aught of any good thing which the Lord had spoken unto the house of Israel. All came to pass. So in that the promise was fulfilled by the Lord. He delivered them to the promised land. He delivered them their cities. He delivered them the milk and honey, the land of milk and honey. It was now up to them to live happily ever after by obeying the Lord. And unfortunately, as we know, As we will read throughout the rest of the Bible, they didn't quite do that, and the result was their own strife within themselves, their own problems within themselves. Oftentimes, disobeying the Lord, the principles of the Lord, which are merely things that work, put it most simply, is in itself a self-destructive. It doesn't even require the Lord's direct wrath afterwards. Usually the wrath comes as a matter of protecting those from who are trying very hard to obey the Lord, and the wrath comes on those who aren't yet. And the result of that, we see that in the end time. There's going to be tremendous wrath coming on the world, and yet God's people are going to be within it and protected in whatever way. Whether you believe in the place of safety idea, I suppose there's still some who believe in the idea of going to Petra, which is ironically in this very area which is hardly protected and hardly safe right at the moment. Or whether you believe that being in the safe places wherever you are in obedience to the Lord, which is what I happen to believe. But either way, you can't ignore the gift that the Lord has given you, because it was given for a purpose greater than people. Otherwise, why would there be? The Lord doesn't play favorites among people, but He does give people blessings for a purpose. And in His case, the blessings were given because of the coming Messiah. But what happened when He came? Well, they killed Him. They didn't even recognize Him, because by that time, their religion had really become their religion. They'd made what they were given, whether they started out, and apparently that's what happened. They just wanted to make sure they obeyed it better than they did the first time when they returned from Babylon. But the thing is, all they had to really do was obey what they were given. But instead they added all sorts of little interpretations and nitpicky things that eventually became the law. And so much so, their own law, by the way, so much so that it actually became contrary to the real law. So much so that they accused the Messiah of being a sinner. And He was the one that originally gave them the law to begin with. You can see how things get turned around. But right here, as we read, they're there. The promise was fulfilled. If Abraham were to be resurrected that day and saw that, he would say, "Thank you, Lord, you've done everything you said you were going to do." Because that promise was made to righteous Abraham. And Abraham never messed up. Never. But unfortunately, his descendants, physically, and I'll put on the link for the New Covenant, because, that was made with Israel, because they kept messing it up. It wasn't made somehow with, many people talk of Christianity as a New Covenant, as though it was doing away with all the Old Testament or something like that. But the New Covenant was made with Israel, so that they would be able to see in their due time. And everyone else, the covenant practice was made not with an Israelite, it was made with Abraham. He was just an Iraqi immigrant in a land in which he never really owned anything except his wife's grave. He lived in a tent for all his life because he was looking forward to a city, as we read in the book of Hebrews. It wasn't anything like that. Abraham understood the gospel far better than most Christians do. And they call him a Jew, or they call him an Israelite, or they call him... But none of those people existed yet. There were no Israelites in the time of Abraham. They were his descendants. There were no Israelites at all in his time. There were no Jews. There wasn't... Those people didn't exist yet, because they were the descendants of Abraham. Because the principle is righteousness. And righteousness is striving as best we humanly can to obey the Lord. Our example to live by is Abraham. And I'll put on the link for what did the Lord say about Abraham. Because he did it right. And all the religionists, Abraham wasn't a religious kind of man as far as what calls itself religion today. He was a man who was given the law by the Lord, and he obeyed him. It was a way of life for him, and that's what it should be for us. We're not looking to be religious. We're looking to live according to the way our eternal King commands us to live if we want to be living in His kingdom, the kingdom of God. Thank you for joining us for services this week. As always, your being with us makes our joy complete. Until next week, when we meet again on this, God's holy Sabbath day, may the Lord bless thee and keep thee. May the Lord make His face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. May the Lord lift up His countenance upon thee and give thee peace. God bless you all.